For any athlete, the key to getting faster is actually by practicing going fast. It seems way too logical, it seems way too simple, but I'm going to break down today exactly why you need to practice going fast to actually become a faster athlete overall, regardless of what your sport is. Hey guys, Nick here. Welcome back to the channel talking science of endurance and everything sports science in general. Welcome to the channel. If you're watching for the first time, please consider subscribing down below to join a great community we've got growing at the moment. Wanting to learn, asking questions. Basically, I explained it to people the other day as it's like getting free sports science consulting. You can ask your question, I'm probably going to respond in a video form like this, but then also it helps everyone else who might be thinking the same thing. So love to hear your questions down in the comments. And this video today is again based on a little question and discussion we had in the comments the other day about something like the maffetone method. I think it does have a time and place, and I'm not going to bash it too much, so don't by any means think I'm just coming on here to say it's wrong or anything like that. But what I am more talking about today is this misconception of what athletes think they need to do to be able to go faster. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, if your goal is to go faster, whether you're a sprinter, whether you're an endurance athlete, whether you're a team sport athlete, if you want to get fast, you need to practice going fast. And the best way I can describe that is it's like any other skill. If you're practicing to ride a bike, what do you do to get better at riding a bike? Well, you ride a bike. It's not too difficult if you like. People tend to overthink it. So what I'm sort of alluding to here when I talk about the maffetone method is the question that came through in the comments and the great discussion was, what are the thoughts around the maffetone method? People are starting to use it. It's kind of having a bit of resurgence again in the endurance industry, particularly through something like COVID lockdowns. People are starting getting back to this long, slow, and let's do some long, slow base and just work on that for a time being. And I think there's some good time and place, like anything in terms of different areas of training. The long and slow obviously has a time and place. And I've always been, a bit of an advocate of having a balanced approach to your training. You need some sort of long, slow volume in there because particularly for endurance athletes, it's quite specific in terms of that all-day ability, building the aerobic capacity. For team sport athletes in off-season and early pre-season, it's good to get some Ks in the legs just to get you ready to endure some higher training loads as you work through the pre-season into the middle of the season. So there is a time and place for it. But for those who are unfamiliar with the maffetone method, it's a simple method of taking 180, minusing your age, and then that's your, long, slow heart rate intensity. And as I've spoken about before on this channel, and I might link it above in the description down below, about things like 220 minus your age for finding maximum heart rate and training zones and these generic based equations. And I haven't read too much into maffetone because I'm not a personal user of it, but I respect the practice that people are finding different ways to go about their training. In terms of the equation, because it is this, generic equation at the end of the day, it's 180 minus your age, it's not going to work for everyone. If I go through and do the equation, I think it comes out in the mid 150s, which is probably close, but probably a little bit under what I can actually do in a long, slow run, in that long, slow, continuous effort. And I'd feel like if I go out at sort of 165 beats per minute, I can hold just under 5 minute Ks, just a little bit under. And I'm pretty comfortable at that. I can sustain that for a period of time. At the moment, I don't do a lot of that type of training personally, but that's where I'm sort of at. If I was to run at 155 beats per minute, I'd probably having to go out at sort of 6 minute K type pace, a little bit slower than that to really try to keep my heart rate down. I'm one who has quite an elevated heart rate. I can usually get my heart rate at a maximum level up to 190s, almost 200s when I'm really pushing. So it's the type of thing that 155 is quite low for me, and I'm going to feel like I'm really dragging my feet. And that can also have a damaging effect in terms of load on the body because I may not be placing my feet underneath me as well as I could. Technique starts to go out the window because it's, as a lot of you would know, it's almost then harder to go slower sometimes than it is to go quicker. There is a time and place though. I know a lot of athletes who do fit that generic equation and who sort of work in, and it can work really well for them, and they, get a little bit lucky in that it does work. I do also have a lot of athletes who fall well below. They sort of go 180 minus age and they go, I have to run at 120 beats per minute. Some of the older athletes in particular, they're like, I just don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can run at 120 beats per minute. And they end up walking, and it's like, well, is there a training effect there? Probably not. What I'm getting at here in terms of this principle is I often hear this also coupled in with athletes then trying to get faster. And it really doesn't make sense to me in terms of, the logical side of things is that you would run slower to get faster, and you would have seen article after article after article saying, right, you need to run slow to get fast. Well, not necessarily. It depends what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get the same speed over a longer period of time, sure, running that extra capacity side of things, building the volume, running slower and doing some more of it essentially is going to allow you to run for, instead of 5Ks, now you can run for 10Ks, now you can run for 15. It's going to build up the volume in the legs to be able to tolerate those loads, but it's not going to get you faster. By running slower, you are just going to teach yourself to go slow. And I describe this to my athletes all the time who sometimes maybe don't believe me. I say, if you want to run at 5 minute K pace, and that's all you practice, That's okay, because that's very specific to what you want to run at. In a race though, what do you want to run at? And often they might come back and say, I want to run at 4:30 pace or 4 minute pace, 3:30, whatever it is, depending on their skill level and their ability. And I go, well, why would you run at 5 minute K pace all the time? If that was all you did, then it's very different. If you're mixing it up and having the intensity in there, that's where we start to get the meaning. And so by running fast and practicing to run fast and specifically fast, we can get a really positive adaptation. 100 meter sprinters don't go out and practice running slow to get fast. I mean, that's the extreme end of the example, but 10,000 meter runners don't also just run slow to get fast. Right at the Olympic level, they're running super quick and they have to practice super quick. Yes, it is a less percentage of their engine because their engines are so big and they can run stupid fast at the top end. I get that argument, but at the end of the day, they're not practicing running as slow as they can to then get faster over a shorter distance. They're practicing running faster to get faster. So doing the high intensity work is really, really critical, and cutting it out completely, I think, is a really interesting game to play, because you're really stripping back at the top end of the engine, the aerobic power side of things, and that's the quickest way to lose performance. We know that from a detraining perspective, the easiest way, and we talk about it all the time in tapering, it's the same principle. If we detrain, the easiest way to detrain the body and actually get worse in terms of reduce our performance level is by cutting out the intensity. You can cut out as much volume as you like, but as long as you maintain some high intensity in there, you're going to maintain the upper end of your engine, and really that's going to be the part that moves the most. The long slow will just come with it. So what I'm really getting at here is making sure that if you're wanting to get faster, you have to practice running faster than you already are. So whether that's doing some shorter based intervals with long rest periods, two minutes on, 2 minutes off, or it could even be 2 minutes on, 4 minutes off if you really wanted to, and really pump the pace up there. We really need some sort of stimulus that teaches you to go faster than you were before, so that those paces that are now submaximal are now a little bit easier. And I guess final thing to leave you on, the best way I can explain this is with VO2 intervals, and you haven't watched that video yet, please go check it out. I'll link it above and in the description below on how you can maximize VO2 interval sessions. But a session like 2 minutes on, 2 minutes walking for a runner's perspective, or 2 minutes hard on the bike, 2 minutes very easy spinning, what we're trying to do there is teach you to go way up at 95, 100% of your VO2 max. So that's the upper limit of your engine, let's say here. If we're trying to race just below it, it's a threshold, FTP, just below threshold, wherever we are down here, we're limited at how fast that race intensity can get, because it's never going to exceed VO2 max unless the event is less than 5 to 6 minutes in length. If you're an athlete who's racing over half an hour to an hour, hour and a half longer, you're limited by where the top end of your engine is. I always talk about it as how high can you jump in relative to the ceiling. My ceilings are only so high. Eventually, if I jump higher than where the ceiling is, I'm going to hit my head pretty quick. But if I do the training, do the VO2 max work up at that maximal intensity, push myself, train myself, practice running faster or practice training faster, the body's going to get used to it. It's like learning any skill. It's going to get used to it. And all that's doing is, instead of having the ceiling here, it's lifting the ceiling. If I lift the ceiling, now I can jump higher without hitting my head. And all that jumping higher is doing is just lifting that race intensity, or that competition specific intensity. So hopefully that sort of clears things up in terms of some of my thoughts anyway about implementing some fast training in, why you need to train fast. It really, at the end of the day, we can talk about science as much as we want, and you can present as many arguments as you want, but if athletes want to get faster, they have to practice going faster. It's as simple as that. I'm going to leave it there. Make sure, as always, please hit the subscribe button down below. Share this with a friend who might be interested and who needs to really hear this if they just do long, slow training. I think that's the pathway to success. Make sure you pass it on to someone. I think this is a really sort of interesting topic to talk about, and happy to have a great discussion in the comments. Do you disagree with me? Love to hear it as well. Always love to have that chat and a balanced discussion, because I might think one thing, you might think another. We could get to the same outcome, and that's the brilliance of sports performance overall. Like I said, please consider subscribing to the channel down below. Thanks for the support so far, and that is it for today, so we'll see you in the next one.